Hey guys, it is coffee time, and we are back. We are back on the Europe trip. For those of you who have not been watching this long enough to know about the Europe trip, I've been talking about a 14 country long trip that me, my brother, my sister-in-law, and her brother all went on together. We are now in Germany. If you would like to go to the other places that I've done vlogs on so far, you can click on the rainbow annotations and it'll take you there. But otherwise, we are going to continue on with Germany. So we stayed in Berlin for one night and then went to Estonia, and then stayed in Estonia for a week and then came back and then experienced Germany, which I totally forgot about. And so I promised you guys that I would talk about Germany and then went, oh, wait, we went to Estonia first, technically. But I think I'm still going to talk about Germany because it's not very time sensitive at all. There wasn't anything that happened in a way where we're like, oh no, I should really talk about Estonia first. It's not a big deal. Although, we stayed in Germany long enough and we experienced enough that I think I'm going to break it up into two videos. I think that the first video is going to be Berlin, just in general. And then the second video will be like Dresden and Weimar and all that. Because we were here for a long time. And really loved it. Amanda, I think I've told you guys this before, but Amanda and Tyler are super German. Super German. And so they fit in, like, immediately. Jared looks very Swedish. I look very French. So, we didn't fit in as well, but people tried to talk to them in German constantly. And they were like, we don't speak German. Sorry, we speak Spanish. Oops. But Germany was great. Really loved Berlin. And it's funny because when we first got there, everybody was like, oh, Berlin looks pretty normal. Like, meh, not a whole lot, whatever. So our first night in Berlin, was when Amanda and I were like, we are in the birthplace of techno, we are going dancing. We were so excited. Because Amanda and I are both the type of people who don't go to clubs to drink or meet people, we go to clubs to dance. So we only go to dance clubs, and we were so excited. We had been pumped the entire trip to go to a dance club and experience it and just be so excited. So we got there, we went to a club that had a good rating and was close enough. The line was so long, and we were like, well, we'll stand in line. We really want to do this. Not a big deal. So the boys were not enthusiastic about going to this club at all in the first place. Like, starting off in a... So we were standing in line, 45 minutes in, we had moved, like, this much. Like, had not really moved much at all. And pretty much everybody around us was smoking, and both Amanda and Jared are very sensitive to cigarette smoke. So, we stood there for the 45 minutes, and Amanda and I were still like, oh, we want to go so bad. And Jared and Tyler, just didn't want to be there anyway, and they were coughing a bunch, and then they did the awkward thing where they stood outside of the line and watched us, and we were like, fine. So we left. We didn't stay. It was really late already. It was like, it was like 11 or... I don't think we stayed until midnight. But we stayed until it was pretty late, and then we were like, we should probably go home. Which was sad. Amanda and I were both super bummed. But we decided, we figured we'd probably wind up coming back to Germany at some point. So we were like, we'll go next time. Next time it will happen. So, yes. So that was our first night in Berlin. Our roommates, I'm trying to remember. I think our roommates were pretty awesome. But I can't remember very well. We stayed in the same hostel for the one night before Estonia, and when we came back, we just stayed in the same place. The first time that we were there was with the snoring guy. Oh my gosh, I totally remember this. There was a dude who was snoring so loudly. We were in like an 8-person room or something. And this guy was snoring so loudly, and this chick just, like, jumped off of the top bunk, rolled him over, and then just stormed back to her bunk and got back in bed. And we were like... We fist bumped her in the morning. We were like, good job, buddy. And she was like... just, like, had no patience for it whatsoever. It was so funny. But so then, we found a free Berlin tour. And we were like... that sounds pretty cool. And they said, you can don't have to make an appointment. You just show up. It's free. The people work for tips, and it's like a 3-hour. We didn't know this at the time, but it was like a 3-hour tour, and it was incredible. It was so good. Our guide, his name was Christian. Most of the guides are not from America, but Christian was from America, and he had actually been on exchange when the Berlin Wall was still up. So it was cool. He was able to be like, oh, I remember this from when I was here before, and he was just extremely informative, and we loved it. We loved every second of it. I will link you guys actually to their website so that you can check it out. If you ever go to Berlin and want to do a really good tour, you find out so much stuff on this tour. It's crazy. But like, so we saw the Berlin Wall, and they actually have a wall. There's only a little bit of it left, and there's actually a wall to protect the wall because people keep chipping off pieces and then selling them, which I'm not surprised about, but it was just really funny. Like, there's just like this little piece of the wall left, and then there's like a cage around it, and you're like, ew. I don't want to be that guy. But yeah, so we saw that. We saw the Holocaust Memorial that's in Berlin, and at first when you see it, like, you can't really peel back the layers unless somebody tells you like what it is. It's like an art piece basically. The ground is very uneven, and the tombstones are all made in a way where the deeper that you get into it, the more isolated you feel. It's very interesting. It's very bizarre, but it was meant to give you more of a mental understanding of what it was like. And if you go down, there's like a little museum underneath the memorial. If you go down there, they have a big screen that every 6 seconds, I think every 6 seconds, it changes the name, and it says a different name and a little bit about the person. And they're all people who died during the Holocaust. And we were asking, like, how often it gets through all of the names, and he said it hasn't had a chance to get through all of the names yet because it would take 8 years for it to get through all of the names, which is crazy. Like, it changes every few seconds, and it would take 8 years. We were like, what? It's pretty mind-blowing. It's very powerful. It's a very, very interesting thing to see, so definitely see that if you go to Berlin. What else was there? And they were telling us about, it's funny, some of the buildings like look newer, but the statues on top of them are older. And he was telling us that when everything was going down, they were like, dude, we need to hide stuff. So they were taking like all of their big statues and some like paintings and things and tossing them in the water, like hiding them anywhere that they could. And I guess even now they still find things randomly, like old antiques and like pieces of things. But because it was such a hurried decision, like, they were just like, we need to hide this stuff so that afterward, maybe we can reclaim some of the stuff that was ours, which they've been able to do. But because it was so just like, just toss it in, they keep searching for stuff because there's still so many things that are missing, which I thought was so crazy. But it's very cool. So now, like, some of the newer buildings have like these really old, beautiful statues on them that were hidden like during that time. So that was really cool. What else was there? We saw Checkpoint Charlie. We saw Hitler's bunker. There are still bullet holes in some buildings, which is interesting. Yeah, it's very crazy because he was saying that Berlin is very divided right now in terms of their opinions on some things. There are buildings that half of the community really want torn down, don't want them there anymore. And the other half of the community are saying, no, we should keep these because the last thing that we want to do is forget what happened, which is very interesting and very powerful when you think about it. So he was telling us about how that's really primarily been the biggest conflict that's been happening in terms of like the community, at least at the time that we were there, which was in 2006, I think. But yeah, there are a bunch of buildings that like they keep being like, we should we should tear these down and build something else. And then a bunch of people are saying, no, don't do it. Because then, like, then that piece of our history, like, it's not there anymore. Which is interesting. I know I'm forgetting something. I always have Amanda's blog up at the same time because she wrote down a lot of information. There's something else specific. Vandals chipping at the wall. Oh yeah. Oh, another thing about the memorial. All of the tombstones have anti-graffiti paint on them, so that if there's any like neo-Nazi stuff that's sprayed on them, they can be instantly wiped down and have it washed off, which is smart. Because when we got there, we were like, "How is this not completely vandalized? I'm so confused." But they took the precautions. They knew that was going to happen. So, yes, putting things in the rivers, which is so funny and awesome to me. Another thing, this wasn't on here. I was thinking about it the other day, actually. They have Christian was calling them bike fairies, because in Berlin, at least at the time, I'm hoping that all of this is still relevant, like the stuff at the time that we were there. They have such a sophisticated bike system that I'm like, why does no one else do this? Where people can just like grab bikes and drive them wherever and pay for it, and then just leave the bike wherever, and they all have little homing devices, so that a big old truck at night can just drive through and find all of the bikes and put them back. Like, they're just public transportation bikes. So cool, so smart. I kept wondering while we were on the tour, I didn't ask, but I kept wondering, like, what if somebody just like put it in their garage or something? Like, would you just knock on the door and be like, I know it's 3 a.m, but you have one of our bikes. Like, oops. Maybe they would just keep charging the dude. I don't know. I don't know, man. But I thought that was kind of cool. They're very energy efficient there. Extremely energy efficient in Berlin. It's craziness. Yeah, I think that was pretty much everything that we saw. I mean, we saw a bunch of stuff. Like, it took us everywhere in Berlin. It was crazy. You have to go. If you go to Berlin, you have to go on this free tour. It's so cool. They do a bunch of, like, more specific tours that are not free. But this tour specifically, they do it twice a day, rain or shine. And they just take you, like, briefly everywhere. And then if you're interested in doing another one, like, if you liked it, then, you know, you can get a more specific one, which I think is really cool. We only went on the free one, but we tipped him very well. We were like, here's basically what we would have paid for a tour, because that was an incredible tour. And when we got back, oh, it was so cool. When we got back, the museums, the state museums on Thursdays from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock are free to the public. So we got done, it was on a Thursday, we got done with our tour at 5, I think. And then he was like, oh, by the way, the state museums are free from 6 to 10. And we were like, awesome. So we went and got food. I think we got gyros, and they were not very good. And we were like, nothing can beat George's Place. Nothing will ever beat George's Place. But anyway, so we got food, and then we went into, like, every museum that we possibly could. And just, like, wandered around. And even then, like, we weren't able to see everything. We stayed until, like, I think until 10. Like, we went from, like, 6 to 10, because we were like, it's free! And as I've said before, we were very penny pinching on this trip, so. But yeah, so that was, I think that's mostly what we did in Berlin. Like, we went on this trip, we tried to go into the club and failed. And then the next morning we got up and got a car and drove to Dresden. Oh, Dresden! I loved Dresden. Oh, I'm excited to talk about Dresden. There isn't as much to talk about as there is to talk about Berlin. Because Berlin is just so chocked. There's so much history in Berlin. It's crazy. And actually, when we got back, both Amanda and I were like, it's interesting. A really good tour can whet your appetite for history. I'm interested in history, but I don't like reading about history. But after we went on that trip, I was like, I want to read more about Germany. Like, it was just very interesting. Like, And I know that every country has very interesting history. It just takes something to get you interested enough to be like, oh, I want to delve more into this. Yeah. Anywho, but that was Berlin. And next weekend, we will talk about Dresden and Weimar and all of that. And then we can talk about Estonia. Yay! I loved Estonia! Yes. So it'll be fun. But thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed this. And I will talk to you guys again tomorrow. Okay. Bye-bye.